Never defend yourself. Machiavelli's trick to flip the power instantly. You're standing there, and someone just called you out. Said you're selfish. Said you don't care. Said you're fake. And right now, every fiber in your body wants to explain, wants to correct them, wants to prove them wrong. Stop. That urge you feel? That's the trap. Because Machiavelli knew something that will save your reputation forever. The moment you start explaining yourself, you've already lost. Here's why. When you defend, you validate. You're telling the world that their opinion matters enough to change your behavior. You're saying their judgment has weight. And once you give someone that power, they'll use it against you every single time. But there's another way. A way that makes them question themselves instead of questioning you. A way that flips the entire dynamic so fast they won't even realize what happened. Watch this. Someone says you're cold. Most people panic. No, I'm not cold. I care about people. Let me explain. Wrong move. You just proved their point. You just showed them they can make you react. They can make you scramble. They can make you dance to their tune. Here's what Machiavelli would do instead. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Maybe a slight nod. Maybe you look at them like they just told you the sky is blue. Then you continue whatever you were doing. What happens next is beautiful. They start talking more. They start explaining why they said it. They start looking for validation from others. They start seeming emotional while you seem calm. And suddenly, everyone in the room is watching them unravel while you stay perfectly still. You didn't argue. You didn't defend. You didn't attack. You just refused to play their game. And that refusal? That's power. Let me tell you what's really happening here. When someone attacks your character, they're testing your confidence. They want to see if you believe in yourself, or if you need their approval to feel good about who you are. The weak person needs approval. They explain. They justify. They beg to be understood. The strong person already knows who they are. They don't need your permission to exist. They don't need your validation to feel valuable. And that certainty? That's what makes people respect you. Machiavelli wrote about this centuries ago, but it's more relevant now than ever. In a world where everyone's trying to be liked, the person who doesn't need to be liked becomes magnetic. Think about it. Who commands more respect? The person who argues with every criticism, or the person who hears it and moves on like it never happened? The person who gets defensive, or the person who stays composed no matter what gets thrown at them? The person who explains themselves constantly, or the person whose actions speak louder than any words ever could? Here's the psychology behind it. When you defend yourself, you're operating from a position of weakness. You're saying, I need you to think well of me. But when you don't defend, you're operating from strength. You're saying, your opinion doesn't change who I am. And people can feel that difference. They can sense when someone is secure versus when someone is insecure, and they naturally respect the secure person more. But here's where it gets interesting. Sometimes, people attack you, not because they think you're weak, but because they're afraid you're strong. They're testing to see if they can shake you. They want to see if you'll crack under pressure. This is especially true in professional settings. Someone undermines you in a meeting. Someone questions your ideas. Someone tries to make you look incompetent in front of the boss. Your instinct is to fight back, to prove them wrong, to show everyone how smart you really are. But that's exactly what they want. They want you to get emotional. They want you to lose your cool, because then you look unprofessional, and they look calm. Instead, try this. When someone attacks your idea, pause. Look at them. Then calmly say, "Interesting perspective," and move on. Don't elaborate. Don't argue. Don't explain why they're wrong. What happens? They're left hanging. They expected a fight, and you gave them nothing. Now they look like the aggressive one. They look like the one who can't handle disagreement professionally. You just won without throwing a single punch. This works in personal relationships too. Someone accuses you of not caring. Instead of listing all the ways you do care, just say, "I can see why you might feel that way." Then give them space to process their emotions, instead of trying to manage them for them. It's not that you don't care. It's that you're not going to let their emotional state control your behavior. You're not going to let their feelings dictate your actions. And here's what's beautiful about this approach. When you stop defending yourself, something magical happens. Other people start defending you. When you're secure enough to let criticism roll off your back, others notice. They see your strength, they see your confidence, and they start speaking up for you, because they respect what they see. But when you're constantly defending yourself, people think, if he has to explain himself so much, maybe there's something to these accusations. Machiavelli understood that perception is reality in the game of power. It doesn't matter what's true. It matters what people believe is true. And when you act like someone who has nothing to prove, people assume you have nothing to hide. Now, this doesn't mean you become arrogant or dismissive. There's a difference between confidence and arrogance. Confidence is quiet. It doesn't need to announce itself. It just is. When someone criticizes you, you can acknowledge their right to their opinion without accepting their opinion as fact. You can stay respectful without being defensive. You can be kind without being weak. The key is emotional control. When someone attacks you, they're trying to trigger an emotional response. They want you to get angry or hurt or flustered, because when you're emotional, you're not thinking clearly. You're not in control. But when you stay calm, when you stay centered, when you refuse to let their emotions dictate yours, you maintain your power. You stay in control of yourself, which means you stay in control of the situation. This is what Machiavelli meant when he wrote about the importance of appearing unshakable. It's not about being cold or heartless. It's about being so secure in who you are that external criticism can't penetrate your inner peace. And when people see that level of self-possession, they respect it. They might not always like it, but they respect it. And respect lasts longer than likability. So the next time someone tries to make you defend yourself, remember this. You don't owe anyone an explanation for being who you are. You don't need to justify your choices to people who aren't living your life. You don't need to prove your worth to people who can't see your value. Just be. Just exist. Just continue being yourself without apology or explanation. And watch how the dynamics change. Watch how people start treating you differently. When they realize they can't shake you, that's the power Machiavelli was talking about. Not the power to control others, but the power to control yourself. And when you master that, everything else falls into place. But let's go deeper into this concept, because most people misunderstand what it means to not defend yourself. They think it means becoming a doormat or letting people walk all over you. That's not what Machiavelli taught. He taught strategic silence, calculated non-reaction. There's a massive difference between being passive and being powerful. When you're passive, you don't defend yourself because you're afraid. When you're powerful, you don't defend yourself because you don't need to. The passive person hopes the attack will go away if they ignore it. The powerful person knows that their silence will make the attacker look foolish. The passive person is scared of confrontation. The powerful person controls the confrontation by refusing to participate in it. See the difference? One comes from fear, the other from strength. Machiavelli understood that in any conflict, there are always three audiences: the person attacking you, yourself, and everyone else watching. Most people focus only on the first two. They either try to convince their attacker they're wrong, or they try to make themselves feel better by defending. But the real game is being played for the third audience, the watchers, the observers, the people who will form opinions about both you and your attacker based on how this interaction plays out. And here's what those observers see. When you defend yourself frantically, they see someone who's unsure, someone who might actually be guilty of what they're being accused of, someone who cares too much about other people's opinions. But when you remain calm and composed, they see someone who's confident, someone who knows their own worth, someone who doesn't need external validation to feel good about themselves. And that perception becomes reality in their minds. They start treating you like the person they think you are, which means your power grows without you having to do anything. This is the genius of Machiavelli's approach. It's not about winning the argument, it's about winning the perception game. And in the perception game, the person who cares less wins. Now let's talk about the specific techniques you can use to implement this strategy. Because knowing the theory is one thing, but having practical methods is another. First technique, the blank stare. When someone attacks you, don't immediately respond. Just look at them for a few seconds. Not with anger, not with hurt, just with calm observation. This does two things. It gives you time to think instead of reacting emotionally. And it makes them uncomfortable because they expected an immediate defensive response. Most people can't handle being stared at calmly when they're being aggressive. They start to doubt themselves. They start to wonder if they overstepped. They start to feel foolish. Second technique, the redirect. Instead of addressing their attack directly, change the subject or redirect the conversation. This shows that their attack wasn't even worth acknowledging. For example, if someone says, "You're always so selfish," instead of defending your generosity, you might say, "Speaking of that, did you finish the report?" This dismisses their attack as irrelevant. Third technique, the agreement judo. Sometimes you can agree with their criticism in a way that takes all the wind out of their sails. If they call you stubborn, you say, "I do stick to my principles." This reframes their negative attack as a positive trait. It shows that you're not ashamed of who you are, and it leaves them with nothing to argue against. Fourth technique, the question. Flip. When someone accuses you of something, instead of defending, ask them a question. "Why do you think that?" Or, "What makes you say that?" This puts them on the defensive. Now they have to explain and justify their attack. Often they realize they don't have a good reason, or they expose their own insecurities in their explanation. Fifth technique, the calm dismissal. Simply say something like, "If that's how you see it," or "You're entitled to your opinion," and then move on. This acknowledges their right to think what they want, while showing that their opinion doesn't affect you. It's polite but dismissive. It shows strength without being aggressive, and it often frustrates attackers because they can't call you rude. But here's the key to all these techniques. They only work if you're genuinely not bothered by the attack. If you're seething inside but trying to appear calm, people will sense it. The power comes from truly not needing other people's approval, from being so secure in who you are that external criticism bounces off you like water off a duck's back. This is the deeper work that Machiavelli was pointing to. It's not just about appearing strong externally. It's about becoming strong internally, about building such a solid sense of self. that other people's opinions become irrelevant to your self-worth. When you reach that level of inner security, not defending yourself becomes natural. It's not a technique you have to remember to use. It's just who you are. And that authenticity is what makes this approach so powerful. People can sense when someone is genuinely unshakable versus when they're just pretending to be. Now, let's address some common objections to this approach. Some people say, "But if I don't defend myself, people will think the accusations are true." This reveals a fundamental misunderstanding. People don't think accusations are true because you don't defend them. They think accusations are true because of how you defend them. Desperate, emotional, over-the-top defenses make you look guilty. Calm non-reaction makes you look innocent. Think about it. If someone accused you of something you knew was completely false, would you panic? Or would you be amused by how wrong they were? The innocent person isn't threatened by false accusations because they know the truth. Only guilty people panic when accused. So by not panicking, you signal innocence. Another objection is, "But I need to stand up for myself." There's a difference between standing up for yourself and defending yourself. Standing up for yourself means maintaining your boundaries. Defending yourself means explaining why you're not what they say you are. You can enforce your boundaries without justifying them. You can remove yourself from disrespectful situations without explaining why. You can refuse to tolerate bad behavior without defending your right to refuse. The key is action, not explanation. Show them how you expect to be treated. Don't tell them. Some people worry, but what if they spread lies about me? Here's the truth. People who are going to believe lies about you without investigating weren't really your allies anyway. And people who know you well won't believe lies regardless of whether you defend yourself or not. Your reputation is built over time through your actions, not your defenses. One false accusation doesn't destroy a solid reputation, but constant defensive behavior does make you look weak and insecure, which actually does damage your reputation over time. The final objection is, "But it feels wrong to just let people attack me." This is where you need to reframe what's actually happening. They're not attacking you successfully if you don't let it affect you. Their words only have power if you give them power. By remaining unaffected, you're actually winning. You're showing that they can't control your emotional state. That's the ultimate victory. Machiavelli understood that the strongest fortress is an unshakable mind. When you build that fortress, external attacks become irrelevant. They bounce off your walls without leaving a mark. And when people see that they can't affect you, they stop trying. They move on to easier targets, people who will react and give them the drama they're seeking. This is how you become untouchable. Not by building walls to keep people out, but by becoming so secure within yourself that their attacks can't reach you. That's the real power Machiavelli was teaching, the power of inner strength that translates to outer influence. When you master this, you don't just defend yourself better, you transcend the need for defense entirely. You become the kind of person who commands respect simply by existing. Without explanation, without justification, without defense. Just pure, unshakable presence that speaks louder than any words ever could. And that presence changes everything. People treat you differently when they sense that unshakable quality. They speak to you with more respect. They think twice before challenging you. They assume you must know something they don't, because confident people usually do. This creates a positive cycle. The more you act like someone who doesn't need to defend themselves, the more people treat you like someone worth respecting. And the more they respect you, the less you need to defend yourself. Until eventually, attacks become rare, because people instinctively know not to test you. That's the end game of Machiavelli's strategy. Not just winning individual battles, but creating such a strong presence that battles become unnecessary. That's true power.